welcome back to another video on the channel. We have another Grand Slam coming up so soon after the US Open. It's very unusual to see the clay court season played in September. Still something I'm getting used to, but we do have the French Open starting next week, which is fantastic for tennis that we are getting the Grand Slams. Unfortunately didn't get Wimbledon this year, but to get the US and French Open, which looked very unlikely at this stage, is very good, and I'm looking forward to next week. So we haven't got as many absentees as what we had from the US Open. We've obviously got Rafael Nadal back in France, which is the big sort of news. We've got Stan Wawrinka back from injury. We've got Kei Nishikori back from injury, which is great to see. And other than Federer and the likes of Monfils, Kyrgios, Tsonga, we've got pretty much a full lineup at the men's French Open. I will be covering the event as well next week. I am working for Grand Slam Tennis Online, so I'll be writing articles for them and doing live text commentaries, and also doing coverage on the YouTube channel of the men's and women's tournaments. On the women's tournament, I'll be posting my preview video tomorrow for that one and giving my prediction. So just kicking things off a little bit about the tournament itself. I'm interested to see how the next gen do in this event. You know, the likes of Zverev, Tsitsipas, Aliassime. We all know they've got fantastic, big, aggressive games, but I'm always interested to see how they adapt on the slow courts, how they add consistency to the games and make less unforced errors. Then on the other hand, you've got the top three, the three favourites in Dominic Thiem, Novak Djokovic and Rafael Nadal, who possess the consistent ground strokes. They've had success on clay in the past, very fit. The long rallies sort of suit their games more. Patient players. They have the ability to switch it up more than the next gen group, and I think it's just going to be a fantastic tournament. With lots of exciting matches, and there's so many different styles in the event as well, which always makes the event a lot better. So just looking at some of the leading contenders in the draw and kicking things off with no one other than Novak Djokovic, the world number one. It's an interesting sort of drawing tournament, I believe, due to the next gen not posing as much of a threat on clay as they would on a hard court. A lot of the next gen players are at home on hard courts, the likes of Zverev, Tsitsipas, Aliassime, as I mentioned before. They've got the big aggressive games. They hit plenty of clean winners on a fast hard court. But on clay, where the ball sticks in the court more, it's easier to defend. There's longer rallies. You've got to be more patient, conservative. I think that does suit the likes of Thiem and Djokovic and Nadal. So the next gen group don't pose as much of a threat on clay. So I think the big matches, whoever faces Dominic Thiem in the semis out of Djokovic and Nadal, I do believe it's likely to be Nadal. I think it'll be Djokovic against Medvedev, first against fourth, and Nadal it'll be C2 against Dominic Thiem at 3. And that could be the difference. I think Nadal against Thiem could be such a marathon match, whereas Djokovic could have a slightly easy semi-final, and that would mean him reserving stamina for the final, but it's a long way away. We might get an upset early in the draw, so I don't think it's worth the draw too much. We know Djokovic is unbeaten in 2020 in matches that he's actually completed. He did get a disqualification at the US Open, but other than that, he's won every event and match that he's competed in. He is a player that's chasing the greatness. He's just one behind Rafael Nadal on the Grand Slam list and 3 behind Roger Federer. At the minute, I don't think there's any doubt he's the best player in the world. There's no real negatives to his game. His serve's improving over the years. He's got the most reliable and consistent ground strokes in the world with his backhand, his defence, flexibility. He's a fantastic mover. The best returner of serve ever, and he's got a great recent record in Grand Slams. Fully fit, experience. He just ticks every box really. He's a threat in every single event that he goes to, whether it be on clay, hard court or grass. Probably the best player ever, I would say, across all 3 different surfaces. And I think Djokovic comes in this French Open with a better chance than what he usually would have. He's usually got the Australian Open and Wimbledon either side of the French, which he tends to prioritise. He's won 8 Australian Open titles, 5 Wimbledons now. He doesn't always have his best time of the year in the clay court. It's usually down to Rafael Nadal, who's the best clay court player ever. But Djokovic came into Rome last week, won the title there, looked very, very good. I didn't think he looked at his absolute best, but I think the level he produced in the second set against Schwartzman was very high. He'll come to this tournament in huge form, and he hasn't came at this event after playing loads and loads of tennis. The US Open, he went out in the quarter final after playing one set, so he hasn't killed himself at the US Open and played lots of five setters and marathon matches. He's then gone into Rome, which is obviously a 3-set event, and won that relatively comfortably. So I think he's going to come at the French Open and fully fit, and just be raring to go and looking to win another Grand Slam and move level with Rafael Nadal. So moving on to Rafael Nadal, obviously won 12 French Open titles, the most dominant player on a particular surface in the history of the sport, on men's or women's side, without a shadow of a doubt. He's won this event and Masters on clay courts without even dropping sets in the past, not really getting out of third gear, and has pretty much just dominated the clay court season for the past 11-12 years when he's been fit and playing. However, there are doubts of him this year. You usually go into the French Open and straight away it could just be a case of Rafa's going to win, end the video, but that's not the case this year by any stretch. There's a new roof on centre court in Philippe Chatrier, which is going to provide a massive difference in conditions, and I do believe a lot of the matches are going to be under the roof. Rafa's going to have that advantage of probably playing under the roof more than anybody else if that is necessary, because I imagine all of his matches pretty much will be on Chatrier. The tournament is usually played in May. It's obviously being played in September, which means the conditions are going to be different in the weather and heat. Nadal usually prepares for the French Open by playing tournaments in Monte Carlo, Madrid, Rome. I'm not sure what his schedule exactly is every year, but he does usually play probably 4 or 5 clay court tournaments in the lead up to the French to make sure he peaks, and has been playing regular tennis on clay. This year he's played just 3 matches on clay courts, and lost in straight sets to Diego Schwartzman in a match that he looked very unconvincing in. He lost that one in straight sets. Obviously, can't read too much into that Schwartzman match. He didn't serve well. He knows that he didn't perform at his best, but he had been out for a long time. But that's a problem for Rafa. He hasn't played enough this year. He hasn't got the match practice like Dominic Thiem and Novak Djokovic have, and that could prove to be a disadvantage. He does come to this tournament relatively cold. His last tournament before the US, I believe, was in Acapulco in March. So he's played 6 sets of tennis in 6 months competitively. There's no doubt he'll be practicing at home, and I'm sure he's done plenty of practice on the clay courts, but it's not quite the same as playing in tournaments competitively. And also you've got to look at these competitors that are up against him this year. You've got Novak Djokovic, who, as I say, has won every single match that he's completed this year. You've got Dominic Thiem, who's just won his maiden Grand Slam title and reached the final of 2 French Opens in the last 2 years. You've got the next gen coming through. Sasha Zverev's reached a semi-final and a final of a Grand Slam this year. Daniil Medvedev's had a solid enough year. Stefanos Tsitsipas is always going to be bang there. Return of Nishikori, you've got David Goffin. It's unlikely these sort of players are going to trouble Rafa, but certainly Dominic Thiem and Novak Djokovic are going to provide Rafa with huge chest, I believe. And he has got huge challenges this year. He hasn't had ideal preparation by any means. There's a lot of unknowns surrounding Rafa this year, which is unusual to say ahead of him in a French Open. But if Rafa does win it this year, I do think they're one of his most impressive French Open wins. So moving on to Dominic Thiem, who did eventually win a Grand Slam title. He'd reached 3 finals before, and I think everyone wanted Thiem to win one. I do feel he deserved a French Open title or a Grand Slam title, and he did eventually get it at last month's US Open, in which he beat Sasha Zverev in 5 sets after losing the first 2 sets. It was quite a remarkable comeback, but he played fantastically well throughout that event, beating Medvedev in straight sets, and then that stunning comeback against Zverev was deserved of winning any match or slam. It'll be interesting to see how Thiem moves on from that. I've always felt he's a confidence player, but that win in US Open could take his level to new places. I do feel in the past he's been guilty of not producing his best in finals and perhaps his game breaking down at big stages finals, but that was quite the opposite against Zverev. I think he knew he was a favourite going to that one. And when he got the momentum in sets, he did seem to, use that to his advantage rather than a disadvantage. Other than the fifth set, which was just completely crazy, but he did play a solid enough tie break to win that one. I've always wondered whether teams wanted it too much in finals, and that's probably why he's overhit the ball and not produced his best. But I do think he's a player to improve in the experience, and that win could just transform his game to whole new levels. Clay's arguably Dominic Thiem's best service. He's reached 2 Madrid finals, 2 French Open finals in the past. He's very solid all round, consistent ground strokes. His fitness is probably his biggest asset. I was going far as saying he's probably the fittest tennis player in the world. He's a player that works 365 days a year on his fitness, and he's improving his game and his body. So any marathon match suits him, and there's going to be plenty of long rallies and long matches, I believe, at the French Open, being a slow surface like it is, and that'll just suit Dominic Thiem out on the ground. As I say, as for renewed confidence, Grand Slam winning now, I do believe Djokovic and Nadal are still the favourites. They've won 17, 18 Grand Slams, as Dominic Thiem's won just the one. So although I do believe them two are favourites, Dominic Thiem is bang at the top of everybody's list. Daniil Medvedev, going to the most Grand Slams, he'd probably put him as the most likely from the next gen group. The likes of Tsitsipas himself, Zverev, Aliassime, Coric. He has got the most consistent error-free rating, which is certainly going to be important on clay. He lost a close match against Thiem at the US Open, although it was straight sets. He lost in 2 tie breaks and he didn't do a great deal wrong. I just think Thiem was in the form of his life and a player that looked destined to win the title after the exit of Djokovic. A worrying thing for Medvedev, he's lost his last 5 clay court matches. He did go out in round 1 of Hamburg as well early this week, but he beat Djokovic last year in Monte Carlo, which shows you he can play on clay and adapt his game. He's a leading contender this next week, but the top 3 have far better results on clay, and you have to be looking at the top 3 to win the event, one of them. Stefanos Tsitsipas, another huge talent who enters the draw, a threat to everybody in the world in a 3-set match. He's shown that on clay as well. His hitting ability is unbelievable from the back of the court. He won the World Tour Finals last year, just hitting through everybody in that week. On a going day, his game is very hard to neutralise, powerful on both backhand and forehand. Backs it up with his monster serve, but that's a difficult game to reproduce on clay, I believe. Against good defensive players who get the ball back in court, he's going to have to hit, winners from side to side to get it past players. And I've always felt over 5 sets he's a player that makes too many unforced errors. And if he does that in a hard court, it's going to be even more prevalent on a clay court. And I do think that he's a player that will struggle to beat other top 10 players while making so many errors and lacking that consistency in his game. He has beat Roger Federer on clay and also beat Rafa last year, I believe, in Madrid in the semi-final before losing to Djokovic in the final. He did reach the 4th round of the French Open as well last year, which was his best run. I do expect him to go better this year, but unlikely that he's going to win the event. But while he's in the draw, he is a threat to anybody. Lastly, Alexander Zverev, a real threat on all surfaces. And you could argue out of the next gen group, he's probably got the best Grand Slam results now in total of the next gen group. He's reached this year a semi-final in Melbourne and a final of the US, so a very good year for Sasha so far. He has also reached 2 French Open quarterfinals in the past. At 6'6", he's got a similar game as Zverev. The fact he's got a massive serve, strong on the double-handed backhand, but would like to add again more consistency to his game over time, which is vital in 5-set matches. I still do see the forehand and the second serve issues. Zverev's a player that makes 15-20 double faults in a 5-set match, which is giving away 4 or 5 games worth of points, which is far too many against the top players. He's not the quickest around the court. That's not too important in Paris due to the slow conditions. Against players like Djokovic and Thiem and Rafa, who Rafa especially plays with a massive topspin, got the variations on a clay court. They can sort of expose Zverev by making a move around the court, using the slice to keep the ball low and turning away, which is something that Sasha struggles with. But yeah, he's having a fantastic 2020. I'm sure he'll come to this tournament in huge form and even more hungry to avenge that defeat at the US Open. A Grand Slam semi-finalist and finalist this year. He's a player that's in form, which is not a thing that a lot of players could say. And I'm expecting another run from Zverev in France. Other notable players are Goffin, Nishikori, Andy Murray, and Roberto Bautista Agut. I expect them four to go well next week. Semi-verdict and sort of my prediction who I think they'll win the tournament. I'm very interested to see how Dominic Thiem performs after that breakthrough win. You know, the one bad thing for Dominic Thiem is he was struggling with an Achilles injury at the back end of that US Open. We don't know how well it's recovered. Hopefully it has fully recovered. He seems to believe it has. He's not worried about not playing on a clay court event. He thinks he can adapt to conditions very, very quickly. But that's remained to be seen. You know, teams that play at always played prep events in the lead up to the French Open. He hasn't had that luxury this year, so it'll be interesting to see how quick he does adapt and play how he plays at the French Open. But I'm sure if you get to the first week, he'll be geared up and ready to go for the second in the business end of the Slam. Djokovic, again, unbeaten this year in the matches he's completed. He's had the perfect preparation by winning in Rome. He didn't go deep with the US Open. He's conserved his energy for this clay court season. He's the number one in the world, so he's got a good draw. Whereas Rafael Nadal has not had ideal preparation. The conditions are going to be different this year, playing at this time of year. He's had 6 sets of tennis in the last 6 or 7 months. One tournament in 6 months, and for the first time in forever, he's not a straightforward pick at the French Open. To sum up my thoughts and give me a prediction finally, I think Thiem needed a prep event, and the Achilles problems seem to be really troubling to me in the French back into the US Open. He could barely walk in that match aside and tie break. I just don't think he's had enough recovery time. And I do think, clay is a very tough surface to adapt to in that short space of time. And I do think he could have done with a prep event. So I'm not going to be picking Dominic Thiem to win this year's French Open, but certainly not writing him off. I think Djokovic beats Nadal in a thrilling final. I just don't think Nadal's had enough top quality level tennis this year. Even if Nadal brushes aside his early round opponents and looks good, Djokovic will provide a whole new test. If Djokovic could win this title, it'd be a great year for him, gaining 2 slams on Federer and Nadal. And I just think Djokovic has had the better preparation all year, not just by winning in Rome and the fact that he's played more than Rafa on clay, but the fact that Djokovic has got winning experiences. He's won in Rome, he's won in Cincinnati, he's won the Australian Open this year, and Rafa can't say that. And Djokovic is playing outstanding tennis. He looked very good last week in Rome, which is something you can't say for Rafa. And I just feel Djokovic has played more tennis, tested himself more this year at the top level, and comes at this tournament is not with most people, I do still believe Rafa would be the favourite due to winning the 12 French Open titles. But I just think tennis is all about current form and winning experience and preparing yourself right for tournaments. I just don't feel like Rafa's had the ideal preparations, and to beat someone of Djokovic's quality with the way he's playing, I think you need to be at peak, and I just don't see Rafa being at the peak of his powers. But it's going to be a fantastic French Open. I did say during the video if Rafa can come out this year and win the French Open after 6 sets of tennis on clay and 1 tournament in 6 months, then absolutely fair play to him, and I think it could be his best French Open title win ever. If he can come out and do that. But yeah, I'll be covering the event next week on Grand Slam Tennis Online on my Twitter account, which I'll leave a link to in the description below, and also on this YouTube channel. My women's preview will be out tomorrow, so do check it out as well. But thanks for watching the video. Please leave a comment on who you think will win the tournament, and I will see you on the next video.